How could you do this to me? What have I ever done? I refuse. I refuse. I refuse. I will not go. It's in the Tanakh, in 1 Kings chapter 18. It's the story of Elijah and the priests of Baal. And Elijah has this face-off with the priests of Baal at Mount Carmel. Very, very famous. And he sets up this showdown. And he says, each one of us are going to take a bull, and each one of us is going to sacrifice it, but no one brings the fire. God has to bring the fire. If your God is real, he'll send the fire down to yours. If my God is real, he'll send the fire down to mine. He says, you go first, right? And they slaughter the animal, they put it on the altar, they start begging Baal for the fire. There's no fire coming. And Elijah starts mocking them. He says, maybe you got to shout a little louder. Maybe he's too far away. He went on vacation, doesn't hear you. You need to shout louder. He says, maybe he's in the bathroom. You got to wait till he comes out. Where's your God? Where's your God? Shout louder, shout louder. And nothing happens. And then Elijah, with a brief, almost flick of the wrist, brings the fire down from heaven. And all the Jews who were watching to see who should we follow, God or Baal, because they were very steeped in Baal worship. You know, they say Hashem hu Elokim, Hashem hu Elokim. Hashem is God, which became part of the Yom Kippur service. We say at the end, you know, the climax of Yom Kippur by Ne'ilah, Hashem hu Elokim, Hashem hu Elokim. Right? It became so classic. But the Midrash adds so much depth to that story as follows. A few details I'll share with you. Number one, the two cows that were used were twin cows from the womb of one mother cow. They were identical twins, the same mother, grew up on the same farm, fed the same food, drank the same water, drank the same milk from their mother, everything the same. They cast lots to see which cow would be for Baal and which cow would be for God. One gets cast for this, one gets cast for that. And Elio kind of like motions to his cow to come to his side, and the cow willingly comes over. But the priests of Baal, they start pulling on the cow that was for them to come to them, and they can't budge him. He won't budge. And they're pulling, and he won't budge. And it says there were 450 priests of Baal, and according to the Midrash, there was another 450 priests of Asherah. And altogether, all 450 of them are tugging on this rope, or 900 of them, men, tugging on the rope of the animal. They can't budge it. It won't budge. And eventually the cow just breaks itself loose and runs to Eliyahu. Runs to him, the second cow, and he buries his head into Eliyahu's cloak, and he starts crying. He starts bawling, his eyes out. And Eliyahu says, what's the matter with you? And the cow says to Eliyahu Hanavi, he says, it's not fair. I'm exactly the same as the other cow. We're twins, identical, from the same womb, from the same mother, from the same milk, from the same grass. Everything about us is the same. He says, and he gets to me, Makadesh Shem Shemayim. He's going to elevate the name of God, sanctify the name of God in front of the whole world right here. He gets that privilege from a random casting of lots, and I, through no fault of my own, who's equivalent to him, have to be a desecration of God's name, that I'll be sacrificed to an idol. I'm going to be a sacrifice to idolatry. How could you do this to me? What have I ever done? I refuse. I refuse. I refuse. I will not go. And Eliyahu Hanavi pats him on the head, kneels down, whispers into his ear, and he says, it's okay. It's okay. Listen. You want to sanctify God's name? He says, I promise you. I promise you. Go and give yourself over to the priests of Baal. And today God's name will be sanctified through you as well. And the cow says, really? God's name is going to be sanctified through me if I go and allow myself to be sacrificed to idolatry? He says, yes, I promise. You will make a Kiddush Hashem today. And he says, then I want to go. and he turns around and he willingly goes to be slaughtered by the priests of Baal. What I gained from that story is when an animal has the opportunity to be elevated in the service of God, whatever his outward reaction is, and we know, animals get jittery when they sense they're going to be slaughtered, except for sheep. That's why sheep to the slaughter, there's a phrase, because they stretch out their necks. Very interesting phenomenon. But cows don't stretch out their necks. They get very anxious. Deep down inside, there is a sense of spirituality in that animal, albeit lower than a human being. And that spirit really wants to connect to God. And if it's given that opportunity, there's a great and deep joy inside that animal. And that's an opportunity that's not afforded to just any animal. So, yeah, true, he didn't get to be a sacrifice to God, but because in the context of that episode, he ended up being a vehicle to prove that Baal was false and God was true, was also a sanctification of God's name. But that's the idea of when we use animals in the service of God, we're elevating the animal in a way the animal, on some deep level, whether we can detect it or not, are thrilled about, and if we could wrap our minds around that, we wouldn't send our checks to PETA. Where's your God? Where's your God? Shout louder, shout louder.